Good. Hope everybody enjoyed the bye week. Congrats to Kevin on the birth of your daughter before the Atlanta game. So hope everything's going well there. I'll hit on the Atlanta game, some stuff from the bye week, and then whatever questions you guys got. Obviously, it's been a little bit. So, the first half of the Falcons game, we did some good things, but certainly, some opportunities that we would like to have back. Missing a PAT. We missed a field goal, 53-yard field goal. Obviously, we want to convert all scoring opportunities. And that's been talked a lot about. I'm sure there'll be questions about kickers and things. But we have faith in Badgley. He's a consistent guy, really competitive, has been very consistent from inside 50 throughout his career, which is what we expect. So obviously when it comes to PATs, kicks inside 50, we expect to be, near 100%. We've been very efficient throughout the season. The kick from 53 certainly had leg to be able to make that, even though it was outdoors in a little bit colder weather. That's something that we made within pregame. He did not hit that ball as clean as he should have, got underneath it and ended up missing it short. But those are opportunities that we know we can convert on. The benefit is in the second half, really on all phases, we played a really good game. Badgley came back to be able to make both the PAT and two other field goals, including 44-yard field goal. That certainly had the leg to be made from 53 as well to take it to overtime, and he recovered and did things very well there. Hit the ball really well on his kickoffs. Kickoff unit had a really good game. We had two tackles inside the 25-yard line. Their average starting field position was the 26-yard line. We certainly look at a lot of stuff, especially over the bye week, and I can kind of hit some self-scout stuff, but really the kickoff unit from the beginning of the year to now, last season, we only had 13 kickoff reps all of last season where there was a return. This year, we've already had 59. So certainly as we get some more live reps, we're able to see, okay, what works best, both from a kick and coverage standpoint with our personnel and where the pieces need to go to make sure we can better maximize everything that we've been doing. The last 4 games, there's only been one time in 25 reps that the ball has gotten to or past the 35-yard line. I think the kickoff unit is really operating at a very high level, did a very good job in the Atlanta game. The kickoff return unit continues to do a really good job. Obviously we generated 3 explosive returns in the game. One in the first half got called back for a holding by Drew Ogletree. Certainly we want to be a very disciplined unit. Penalties kill special teams, especially in the return game. It was a very bang play. It's very close. He was going on a kick out block. The guy was just outside his framework and kind of flailed his arms. It's really not any different than the kick out block we had on the very next 50-yard return that Doolin had. It was very close. We just need to make sure we don't play in that gray area. We can stay right in the framework, but it was not like an egregious or bad play. And Ogletree's done a really, really good job for us. Obviously, we showed in the second half that, our guys had an advantage in the game and were able to generate explosive returns without anything, penalty wise. Sometimes, hey, you get a big return, but it's because of a penalty or something illegal happening, which certainly wasn't the case. Punt return wise, Josh came back, had a really good game, generated 2 explosive returns. One got called back for holding on Ashton Doolin in the first half, and he was very close. Felipe Franks did a great job of laying out where I think Josh would have taken that all the way to the house. He did a very good job setting that thing up. What to say about that one. Ashton Doolin is one of the 3 best special teams players in the NFL. He always plays in a great body position. He makes great decisions. He plays with great fundamentals and technique. There was a mistake that was made on that play. It was not made by Ashton Doolin. I have no further comments. Josh did a great job, generating an explosive return in the second half. And punt team, we only had one. We got them caught with 12 guys on the field. So great job by Rodney Thomas, as our PP running the show to be able to quick snap, get them caught with 12 guys on the field. Ashton Doolin then goes down and forces a fair catch. It was a 44-yard net. I know some people would be like, hey, why wouldn't you repunt that? From a big picture, like coaching standpoint, typically it's not in the coverage team's advantage to always re-kick, whether that be re-kick on kickoff or re-kick on a punt. Your guys just, exerted all of their effort to both protect and then run 45 to 50 yards down the field. So then they have to run back a little bit more tired because of that to then do another rep. Our goal and objective every single punt is to have a 45-yard net, because that would mean if by at the end of the season you have a 45-yard net punt, you'd be the number 1 punt team in the NFL. So the end result on that play was a 44-yard net, which is only 1 yard off from our objective. So obviously we, continued to just take that instead of having to repunt. on that situation. So looking at some big picture stuff just coming out of the bye week. We don't get into a ton of stats, especially with the players and things, but we certainly want to find ways that we can, see where we're at in comparison with the rest of the NFL, how we can end up improve and find ways that we can improve. Overall, though, through the first 10 weeks of the season, I think the guys have performed and played at a very high level. We have a really good unit with really good depth. We're very fortunate with that. The guys are playing really, really well with really high effort. Our punt team currently is number one in the NFL. I think that's really our biggest goal is, hey, when you look at the efficiency rankings, we want to be the best special teams unit in the NFL, and we want to have the number one punt team in the NFL. I think it's the most important phase. We have had, amongst the fewest punts in the NFL. So certainly that does benefit us there as well. But the net punt is really the top statistic that we want to look at. The last 2 years, we were top 10 in the NFL in net punt, which is the first time that's happened. And we've been ranked that highly in franchise history. And last year, Rigo broke the franchise record for punt average. So the punt team as a whole has operated at a very high level. Into 3 years now. There have been some low moments where we've given up a return or had some issues that have overshadowed, I think, some of that really positive and good work that the punt team has done. So we have to make sure that we finish that. We're number one in the NFL in net punt, number 3 in opponent return average, and Rigo's number 5 in punt average. Really good. Our opponent net punts, our punt return team's number 3 in the NFL. The only statistical category that we're not top 10 in the NFL would be punt return average, which we're 19th. Certainly, we have some more opportunities that we can generate there for both Josh and Gould. Field goal wise, we've made 90.9% of our field goals, which is number 6 in the NFL. Obviously, we need to convert all of our PAT opportunities, but we want to be over 90% on field goal, and I've done that so far. Our field goal block team is 3rd in the NFL. Our opponent field goal percentage is 70.6, and we've had 1 block. The kickoff unit's number 8 in the NFL. We're giving up 24.8 yards a return, and the kickoff return unit is number 1 in the NFL at 29 yards per return, including obviously 2 really big returns that have been called back for holding. So certainly some more opportunities for us there as we look to continue to move forward and make sure we can finish strong.
Thanks for that, Mace. Joel, you want to go ahead?
With the 2 Badgley extra point misses, different weeks or whatever, but anything, that's the same about those 2, or just kind of, have you seen anything that's consistent with that?
No, I don't think that there was one consistent issue. One was pulled left, one was pushed right. I don't think that there's any one thing that certainly caused that issue. We just need to make sure, obviously, all 3 guys work together with a really good, clean operation. We make sure we can convert on all those opportunities.
JJ?
Hey, Brian, I'm curious with the average return on kickoffs being so high. PFF has the average starting field position on kick returns at the 31.6 yard line. What's the gap there? Why are those numbers maybe a little off?
What do you mean by gap?
In like being so high in kickoff return average, but being PFF has it at 11th in average starting field position on kick returns. Is that just like the depth of the kick, or?
You're saying so average starting field position compared to our kickoff return average?
Yeah.
Penalties is what causes the skew in that extreme. So we've had some of those penalties that instead of having a 98-yard touchdown or having a 42-yard return, the penalty then backs up your starting field position to, for instance, the 14-yard line. So that's going to drastically skew when you don't have a huge sample size where, around 50 returns. Having a couple penalties really skewed then your starting field position, which can throw things off.
Kevin, go ahead.
Hey, Brian, thanks for the kind words. When it comes to last night and the weird onside punt, how much do you want to inform, obviously, all of your special teams personnel about kind of quirky stuff like that? But then at the same time, there's like a balance in like not trying to give them maybe too much information to where whatever they're overthinking.
Yeah, so certainly like in college, I would say, hey, we're not going to overload our guys. In the NFL, we don't want to overload them, but we have a really long season. Like at the minimum, we're going to play 20 games, right? Both between the regular season and preseason, all of training camp. We have all this extra time between OTAs and training camp to really cover and get our guys to understand every situation. There's certainly more situations to cover offense and defense than special teams. So we hit this sky punt situation because it happens a handful of times a year, and you don't know exactly when that situation is going to happen. So after a safety, you can choose in the normal part of the game, do you want to punt or kick off? In the normal part of the game, first, second, third quarter, you would just kick the ball off this year or in the new model this year and last year because you want to make sure you can definitely get the ball into the landing zone, which sometimes on a punt, maybe you wouldn't be able to do that. If it's after safety, you're losing, it's in the fourth quarter, you can then determine, are you going to do an onside kick or a normal kickoff? Because it's after safety, if you choose to then do an onside kick, you can either do a traditional onside kick or you can punt it because it's after a safety and just do a short punt. Because the ball didn't hit the ground and it's just punted straight into the air, you can call for a fair catch. So traditionally what you're going to see, and this happens probably 5 times a year, is you position punt returners on the unit where you think the ball is going to go, and they call for a fair catch and they catch and secure the ball. It was a little bit funky last night that there was clearly some miscommunication that they didn't let the ball hit the ground, which I think I've never seen actually happen before. And we've watched a lot of sky punts. So then I don't know that the kicking team really knew what to expect either, because they're trying to get like a 1-yard halo around the guy that's going to catch the ball. And they couldn't even figure out who was going to catch the ball. So then it hits the ground. It's kind of a loose ball. So that was a real funky situation, the way that played out. But certainly those are situations that we hit on and talk about every single Friday when we kind of do a situational walkthrough.
And then when Anthony gets back, will he be your punt returner or will you stick with Josh?
We're definitely going to have the opportunity to be able to use, we have a really good set of returners, both in kickoff returners and punt returners, and we're going to have the ability to be able to use all of them when everyone is healthy.
And then James will be our last question.
Hey, Brian, kind of a random question, but as a special teams coordinator, you deal with parts of the game that can be, I don't know if emotional is the right word, but it can be more volatile than others. So throughout your career, how have you learned how to manage or coach emotions when, you could have a game-winning kick, you could have a losing kick, you could have a great kickoff return, you could fumble, it can be kind of chaotic. So how have you learned to manage that and coach that with players when things can go great all of a sudden or go bad all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think you always have to, kind of understand the situation of when somebody needs to be supported or when somebody needs to be coached hard. And a lot of times in those situations, most people in special teams are going to focus on, when you miss a kick or when maybe something negative happens. Those aren't situations that I traditionally have decided to coach hard. Those are situations that you're trying to build somebody up to get their confidence going, focus on something positive so that we make sure we can capitalize in the next moment, because we know we're going to have to reset and the next play is going to be the most important one. But certainly based on situation is going to depend on a little bit of how you're going to be able to match and do some of those things. But it's really your job as a coach. And I think Mike Elko said this really good. I saw in his press conference this past week, like it's your job as a coach to kind of do the opposite of the moment. Like you fight complacency or when guys are really down to find a way to build them back up. So, kind of find that happy medium of how you're either going to get guys to stay focused and fight complacency and maybe coach them a little bit harder when things are going good, or build them back up and find ways to keep them positive when things aren't.